Hi guys, Carrie here. Now, this might be a little weird, but I wanted to quickly talk about total solar eclipses, which is when the moon passes between the Earth and the sun in just the right way to block out all the sunlight. Now, because there's so many little factors that have to match up perfectly, this only happens about once every 2 years or so, and it only is visible on a narrow eclipse path on Earth's surface, and it only is visible for about 2 minutes before the sunlight comes right back. So the reason I bring this up in relation to me is because I personally have never experienced one with my own eyes, but I want to. And the other people I've talked to who have seen total solar eclipses, most of them say that it's an awe-inspiring, almost life-changing experience because you see your relationship to the solar system and the universe. But of course, experiences vary from person to person. Some people think it's no big deal, so who knows how I'll feel about it. Anyway, when I started this YouTube channel, Humany, around that time period, there was one of the most famous eclipses that humanity has ever seen. This was August 21st, 2017, because on that eclipse, the path went right through continental United States. It traveled, I think, from Oregon through the Midwest and like the Nebraska area, and it left in South Carolina, or it went the other way. It goes from east to west. So I bring that all up because at the time, my brother Michael and I were living in Southern California, and California was far enough away from the path that from where we were, it was only a partial eclipse with like 50% coverage. So you didn't really see that much difference at all. But Michael decided to fly out and visit a friend. Oh, it's Pokey. It's the taco slash barf bag slash bell slash cake voice actor. So he visited her. But he went for two reasons. One, to visit her, but two, to also see the total solar eclipse. And I had booked the same flight ticket as Michael to go with him. But then I think the flight left early in the morning, so we had to get up at like 6 a.m. And I was just really tired and sleep deprived because I was working on a YouTube video. So I just said, you know what, I'm not gonna go. And then Michael went alone. And so he ended up seeing the eclipse in a different state, and I didn't. And then afterward, I felt really bad because this is an occurrence that only happens, like I said, once every few years. But if you don't go and hunt them down, you might only see like once in a lifetime because, you know, of the very narrow area that it's actually visible from. Okay, I changed location because it got dark outside. But anyway, back to the story. So next, I watched the eclipse footage live streamed over the internet, but that's nowhere near as good as the real thing. And then after Michael flew back to California, I started kicking myself with regret because I was thinking, I missed out on meeting Pokey, and I also missed out on seeing a once-in-a-lifetime experience that some people think is the most amazing thing a human eye can witness. And there's this mental process called catastrophizing, where you look at your current situation and you see the worst possible outcome of that, no matter how improbable, and you get worried that that's going to happen. And then you get worried that the next most improbable thing is also going to happen, and so on and so on. And it's irrational, it's unhealthy, but whatever. So I was thinking to myself, if I have to wait another 2 years to watch the next solar eclipse, who knows how the world is going to change by then? Maybe some of my family members will die and I will be so stricken with grief I won't even be able to enjoy the next solar eclipse. Or maybe I will die and I won't even get to see one in the first place. And I think it's like in 2017, I couldn't even imagine like, oh, by 2019, I'll be almost done with college, a completely different person. So it felt like there was this tension that I couldn't even enjoy the next 2 years of my life because I wouldn't get to see the resolution of this problem until I had committed to seeing the next eclipse. And so in a very twisted way, I felt like my mind had aged 2 years in an instant because I couldn't see myself as a 20-year-old anymore. I could only see myself as a 22-year-old in waiting for this resolution of all this tension. I'm not sure if many of you know this, but I actually filmed a really long video where I talked about how I felt about that whole situation, and it's one of the oldest videos on this channel. So if you sort by oldest, you can probably find this video called something like I missed a total solar eclipse to work on a YouTube video, something like that. Anyway, this all sounds ridiculous in retrospect. I think when you're catastrophizing, it's hard to kind of take a step back and realize you're being irrational, like you're making a mountain out of a molehill, calm down. But this was sort of like what I was, I guess, thinking. And so I kind of vowed to myself, like, wherever the next eclipse is in 2019, I will go see it. And I was, looking through the Wikipedia list of all the total solar eclipses on Earth, and it was going to happen in Chile in June of 2019. And I just think this is so funny because by the time we got close to that, like around May of 2019, I had forgotten about this whole situation at all. And I remember at some point I kind of joked with my friend who lived in South America that I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I came to visit you and also saw this eclipse because I've been meaning to for 2 years? And we're all just joking. He's like, haha, that'd be so funny, but don't actually do it, lol. And I thought okay, it's not a big deal. But then in 2019, I was going through a kind of a rough mental patch again because I was just graduating from college and I wasn't really sure where to go next in life. I kind of felt directionless. So I kind of went back into the catastrophizing mindset again. And as the date for the Chilean eclipse was approaching, and I still had no plans to see it, I felt like the need that I have to go see it was just increasing day by day, even though there weren't enough days left to plan this thing. And what's really weird is one of my close friends from high school, who I hadn't really talked much since we graduated, had already booked flights and hotels and tickets to go see the eclipse in Chile. And he's kind of an astronomy guy, so he's prepared for this kind of thing. He's got telescopes and all that. And then I figured I'll just message him and see if he has accommodations for me. And so I messaged him, and sure enough, he did. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so lucky. But by the way, this is less than a week before the eclipse, I think. So I called my dad and I said, I'm going to book these flights to Chile, even though it's pretty close to the flight date and it's going to be pretty expensive, but I think it's worth it because I've been waiting for this resolution for 2 years now. And he said, okay, do it if it makes you happy. And I called my mom and I said the same thing, and she was like, this isn't great decision making, but if it makes you happy, do it. So I was kind of in the clear. But just my luck, at the same time, June 2019, I was also on vacation with my brother Michael and our mutual friend Sam, who is also Lollipop's voice actor. And to me, it felt kind of rude to be cutting off our vacation time short so I could abandon them and go see an eclipse that they didn't care too much about because they weren't in the same eclipse-obsessed mindset that I was. But I mean, they were pretty nice, even though I felt like I was being rude to them. They let me do it. And I guess everything was looking like I could finally see the eclipse once and for all. But then I started realizing, oh my gosh, I haven't been out of the United States in 7 years. I don't have my passport nearby me. It's kind of 400 miles away right now. And I also would be going to Chile, a country that didn't speak much English at all, and English is the only language I know fluently. And I sort of panicked in a different direction. Well, maybe not panicked, but I was anxious. I was anxious that I would show up at the wrong hotel and I wouldn't be able to speak to the people and I'd get lost forever. Or maybe my phone would run out of battery and all the plugs in Chile wouldn't match my charging cables and I'd run out of battery on my phone and all my communications would shut down. So I was getting really worried and I felt my stress levels going up, even though this is what I asked for. And so I think about 2 days before the flight itself, so this is really cutting it close, I think as soon as I woke up one morning, I called my mom and I was like, I'm feeling super worried about this whole trip. And she said, okay, if your stress levels are rising, maybe you should cancel the flight and you'll be able to calm down. And I agreed with her. I was thinking, if this obligation to get on this 16-hour flight was lifted off my shoulders, I would be able to calm down. So we both agreed I should cancel the flight, and so I did. And pretty quickly after that, I realized that was a bad idea. Because after my dad woke up maybe an hour later, and I called him and I said, hey dad, I canceled the flight. He was kind of thinking, Carrie, why did you do that? You had everything set up correctly. And if nothing else, it would have been a really fun time for you to bond with your old high school friends. And yeah, like I think it wasn't the best idea to cancel the flight. I mean, I was 22 years old at that point. I am pretty sure I could have fended for myself in Chile, especially given that there's probably like lots of tourists coming to visit the eclipse. I wouldn't be sort of like isolated in the middle of nowhere. I would have been able to survive. I'm an adult. But anyway, when the day of the eclipse came, July 2nd, 2019, they were posting news articles about it, and there was online live streams again, and I kind of got into the same cycle of catastrophizing and feeling like I had aged another 3 or 4 or 5 years in an instant because I was already looking forward to like, oh, when's the next eclipse date? But on top of this, it was also day 2 of my new internship in San Francisco. I feel like all the timings of that whole summer clashed at just the same time. But anyway, it was day 2 of a new internship, and I felt like I have to give a good first impression to my employers, make sure I'm paying attention to them and nothing else. But my mind was so clouded by this eclipse and like how everything sort of came together for me to miss it a second time that I couldn't really focus. And I think that they kind of noticed that I wasn't fully there. And I don't know, that was sort of a weird experience as well. Anyway, I do want to say that mentally I did get better, because what happened later that year was I studied abroad in Japan, and I think that sort of helped reset my brain and made me realize like, oh, I can just do whatever I want whenever I want to. Traveling outside the United States is not that hard of a thing to do. During that whole June 2019 stressing out situation, I sort of unloaded a lot of my thoughts onto my dad. And, when he realized how much I did want to see the next eclipse, he was like, I'm an astronomy buff as well. I like seeing eclipses. Why don't we together plan a family trip to see the next eclipse? And I will hold you accountable and you'll hold me accountable so we won't miss it for sure. And so when is the next solar eclipse? Well, this is why this video is relevant now. The next solar eclipse is on December 14th, 2020, about 1 month from today. And it's also happening in South America around the Argentina-Chile area. And so my dad and I promised ourselves that as soon as the magazine Sky and Telescope posted an ad for a cruise or a bus tour that would take you to where the eclipse is happening, we would sign up for it. We would book 4 seats or something, even if we weren't going to follow through, just to make sure we had a way to get there. But this was back in 2019, 6 months before we all know what happens next. Coronavirus. We had no idea coronavirus was even going to hit. And at this point, like now, today, I'm not stressing out at all. I just think it's funny. I'm just laughing at this whole situation because in this world of COVID-19 now, where the United States, Argentina, and Chile are some of the hardest hit countries, any reasonable person should not travel. And like cruises are the petri dish of where coronavirus spreads. You would be crazy to get on a cruise ship these days. So it's almost certain that I'm going to miss this 3rd total solar eclipse in a row. I think it's funny this time. And I just want to like make this video to remind myself that if I start noticing the bad mental behaviors of catastrophizing starting up again, I am totally in the clear to not go. I'm not losing out on anything. I'm just, being a safe, healthy person, and I'm trying not to infect other people in my communities, right? So more than a video to you guys, this is more a video to myself, just to chill. Chill, Carrie. Now, obviously, nobody knows when this COVID-19 pandemic is going to be over. But for those curious, when is the next total solar eclipse going to happen? The first one after 2020 ends? Well, it's happening in December 2021, but that one's going to be in Antarctica, so it'll be really difficult to get to, and I don't know if that's worth it. And the next one after that is April 2024. Now that one's going to be in Mexico and the United States again, so it's already pretty well known, and some people are already looking forward to it. So I will definitely see that one, but I will be 27 years old by then. And, back when this whole thing started in 2017 and I was 20, I was just thinking, being 27 is so far away. By that age, all my classmates and peers will be getting married, having kids. We'll be in our late 20s, and I will just be a completely different entity and human being. And I just can't even imagine. I guess at that point, I was worried that at the age of 27, all the fun years of my life where you can explore the world, adventure, or just do funny shenanigans with friends was over. And by age 27, I'd be reduced to a worker slave in the capitalistic cog of the machine forever. So I was doing the thing that you're not supposed to do, where you feel like your life is over by your mid-20s. And I wish that fewer people perpetuated this idea that once you hit 25, life is over. Because it's not. I think at this point, now that I am starting to rack up the years, I'm starting to realize that 2024 is going to be here before I know it. And it's really not going to be the case that I'm going to transform into a new personality entirely. I'm still going to be me. I'm still going to be Carrie. So I shouldn't freak out over just 3 extra years to wait or something. But I do want to say that the biggest moral of the story that I wish I could teach myself, and maybe you too as viewers, is that you should never make one thing the most important thing to center your whole life around. In that solar eclipses or whatever, they're only a big deal if you make them a big deal. If I was just ignorant about this whole situation for the past 3.5 years, it would have no impact on my life or my mental processes whatsoever. And the only reason it had such a negative impact on the way I saw my life was because I chose to do that to myself. And I really wish I hadn't. I know that it's impossible to just flip a switch and say, I no longer care about this thing. It takes a lot of practice and effort to sort of change the way that you see your lifetime or you see certain aspects of the world. But I just think that just the lengths to which I made this a big deal, I made this a mountain out of a molehill, that I didn't have to suffer through all that. It's just ridiculous. And again, through this 2020 solar eclipse that I am probably gonna miss, I'm gonna tell myself, I'm not gonna let this cause any mental strain. Like, there's so many bigger problems to worry about. That's sort of where the story is at right now. For context, my dad didn't see his first total solar eclipse until his 40s, and I'm willing to bet that most people don't see a total solar eclipse in their entire lives, but they still have fulfilling, satisfying, totally worthwhile lives anyway. And while a total solar eclipse can add to the list of experiences that brighten your day, the lack of a total solar eclipse shouldn't be something to subtract from anything. There's just so many other aspects to life that can mean so much more to a person. What am I saying? I'm just repeating myself at this point. I don't want to seem too preachy or anything. I mean, I am just like a kid still. I'm not a kid, I guess, but you know what I mean. To pretend that I'm like a sage or anything would be dumb, and I'm just sort of rambling. But I think that talking through my thoughts has definitely helped me, at least. And I guess that's really all there is to say. I'm sure a lot of people in the comments would say something like, I had no idea that this was even something you cared so much about. But I mean, even as I, who almost uploads daily to this channel, I still keep a lot of my life private, or sort of my thought processes private. And then when it comes all spilling out at once, it can seem surprising. But that's true for everyone. And I'm sure everyone sort of has one giant thing that they regret. And I think regrets only hold you back, right? That's why a lot of people just have their mantra be no regrets. And for me, that is so not true. Like, there have been times in my life when I just could not stop reveling in my regrets, that I just need to tone it down. There's a healthy level of introspection, and I'm so far past that I just need to reel it back, kind of tune it out for a bit. Don't listen to those negative voices, and we will all be a lot better off. We'll all be better off, and maybe you watching will be better off. Who knows? Okay, I'm gonna end this video now. Bye!